Hello, Internet. It's me, I'm back, and you're probably wondering why I'm sitting on this drum riser. Probably didn't even know this was a drum riser, but it is, it's a drum riser that Theodore has built. Presumably you've seen in an older video how we built this and kind of why we built it and why it is so awesome. Most of you probably know, because you're church peeps, that a prerequisite to being a church staff member is that you're a musician. So cat is out of the bag officially. I am the drummer at our main campus, and now I have been tasked with setting up the drums and the mics and cameras to do pre-records and different things with the drums on this drum riser. Most of you have a very specific preference on drum placement and how to set up drums, and most of you are probably familiar with the process or at least have some kind of idea of what you're doing. But there's a lot of people out there that have no clue. Like if you go onto like Facebook Marketplace or Craigslist, you see people selling drums like a month or two after Christmas, and you see the setup and it's like a tom's over here, a tom's over here, and they're backwards, and like the snares over here, the floor tom's way over here, and like cymbals are all over. This person had no idea what they were doing. They jumped in because they wanted to learn to play drums. They spent a bunch of money, didn't really know what they were doing, got discouraged, and now they're selling it. So I'm going to show you, in my opinion, one of the more ergonomic ways to set up drums, or at least the way I set up my drums, so that you get some idea of where things should be placed. Fun fact is that I like to start with the drum throne, because I've done this a few times, and there's nothing worse than getting your drums all set up and where you want them, only to find that you didn't leave yourself enough room, and the back leg of your drum throne is like right on the edge of the riser. And you've probably seen some awesome fail videos of people sitting down and flopping off the end of the stage or the end of the riser. So I actually like to start with my throne. Ironically, I forgot my throne today. We have this great metal stool here that is actually about the right height, maybe a little tall. I'm gonna use that as my base just so I can get everything set. But this is gonna be my kind of like base of operations, so that I have room to put my bass drum and then start building out. So cymbals and mic stands. So kind of like sort of right in the middle, more or less. A little bit off center. I'm not gonna be aiming straight forward. I'm gonna be aiming just a couple degrees off, because the bass drum will be square with the platform right here, and the snare will be here. So yeah, the throne I use is not this, it's a rock and sock. My favorite throne, tractor style seat, double braced, very robust design, and it's pneumatic. So it's just like an office chair. You sit on it and press a little lever, and you go down, you stand up a little bit and pull the lever, it comes up. I like those way better than the ones you twist. I think that it also freely spins, so as you kind of fill like down the drums to your right or left, the seat kind of goes with you. So just my personal preference, that's what I'll be using as a rock and sock. So I'm not going to get into too many details about the drums themselves. That may be a later video, or head preference or things like that. I am using a DW set just because it sounds really good. Doesn't mean you have to. They're very expensive. There's lots of other options out there that will do perfect for worship. At the end of the day, a lot of worship drums kind of sound the same. They're big, cymbals are very dry and washy. You can actually achieve a lot of the sound you want without spending a ton of money on drum shells, but I personally love DW, that's what I'm using. And like I said, I want the bass drum to be squared up with the platform. It just looks nicer. So at this point, I'm gonna sit on my throne, or in this case, this metal stool, and I'm gonna get this kind of where it needs to be. So I might move my throne a little bit, I might move the drum a little bit. Like I said, I want that to be kind of the center, just for the visual appeal when they're shooting photos or video of what I'm doing. But at the end of the day, I really want this thing to be square with the platform. So I'll move my throne a little bit if I have to. And then from here, it gives me a good idea of where to start building this way. So next will be the bass drum pedal to really get the best feel for where it needs to be. So now that I have my bass drum kind of where I want it based on where my throne was and how it's kind of squared up to the platform, I'm gonna go ahead and attach my bass pedal. I go back and forth. Sometimes I use double bass for very specific applications, but it's worship, so this is not metal, it's not punk, not something where I specifically need double bass all the time. For me, I like to have it as an option rather than have a single and every once in a while wish I had a double. I'll just have the double on here and I rarely touch it. So for me, it's like having a splash cymbal or effect cymbal. Really shouldn't be using that all the time. It's just something you use every once in a while. If you don't have it, it's not the end of the world, but there might be a time where you're like, man, I wish I had that effect cymbal or I wish I had that extra pedal, and it's already set up. Now for budget purposes, I am using the DW3000 series double bass pedal. I like the 5000 series a lot. They're just a little bit out of our price range for what I had the budget for. I actually like, though, the 3000 series has a narrower footprint, which I actually like. I learned on a DW4000, which is the same pedal, and it wasn't double chain drive, but I like the footprint. I'm used to it, it's comfortable, so that's what I'm using. So this next part is really kind of simple. So when you have a double bass pedal, there's only so many places your hi-hat stand can go. So I just like to get the double bass pedal where I want it, and I just place the hi-hat stand right next to it. Now if it doesn't feel comfortable where it's at, I might have to adjust my double bass pedal a little bit. So right now it's not super comfortable, so I'm gonna move it around just a touch, but it's pretty close. So again, these have Velcro on the bottom, and we are playing on carpet, which you should be most of the time. And so that feels pretty good. I'll know more once I get my cymbals mounted to it. So once I've got the double bass pedal and the hi-hat stand set, I kind of know where this has to go now. This is my snare stand, so I only have so many places I can put it because the double bass pedal leaves this hole right here. I will place it, I will throw the drum on it, and then I will get comfortable with it and see kind of exactly where it needs to be to give me the best kind of ergonomics. Okay, so I've got my snare stand placed. I think it's gonna be in a good spot, but we won't know until I kind of move things around. This is a big snare. It's a 14x8, also DW steel. This thing is loud, but we have it tuned and it works out pretty well for worship. So as far as snare angle goes, I like to play my snare pretty flat. And the premise of that for me is I hit a lot of rim shots, so sticks hitting the rim at the same time as the head. So I like to have the snare fairly flat. Now if I have a smaller snare, like maybe a 14x6.5, I'll actually tilt the snare forward a little bit, make rim shots a little easier. So maybe angle forward. Sometimes if I have a big snare like this, and I don't have the right snare stand, I'll angle it back a little bit because it's just so tall and there's not much you can do to negate that. So I think it's pretty good right there. Probably gonna change a few things on it, but it's really close. Cymbals I usually worry about last, but just to get the snare, bass drum, and hi-hat placement correct, I'm gonna go ahead and throw these on. These are Zildjian K's, light bottom, light top, 15-inch. So again, these are more of a worship sounding. They have a nice stick action, but also they're fairly washy, which is what everyone wants. They're very big sounding. Don't want to get too far ahead of myself, but I may have placed this almost perfectly. So right about there, feels good. I gotta move the double bass pedal just a touch. Okay, so this is where I introduce actually playing a little bit to kind of get a feel. I can already tell the snare is a little bit too far to my left, but I'm really getting close where everything feels where it should be. But this is, again, the only way to really start knowing where things should go is when it feels right. So feels pretty good to me. So I'm gonna keep moving forward. And again, there'll probably be some micro tweaks as we go, but as of now, we're really close. So the way your toms mount is a little different on many sets. This one in particular has its own rack mount stand. It's completely independent from the bass drum. There's no hole in that bass drum for a mount. So next thing, I'm gonna get this kind of situated where I think it should be, put the rack tom on it, and then that also establishes the footprint for this stand. So when I set up cymbals, I'm just using the boom arm of the cymbal to get them where they need to be. The way I angle my toms is kind of the way I angle my snare. It's not for looks, it's purely for ergonomics. So I do like them to be tilted a little bit towards me. I don't play rim shots on the toms, so I want the rim to be accessible in case I want to click on the tom. I don't hit rim shots on toms, but I do get close to the point where the amount of stick hitting the tom is optimal, because you don't want to be hitting it here at an angle, and you don't want to be hitting rim shots typically. Just enough of an angle to get a nice solid whack on it. Now, similar to all the other setups we've done so far, you're not gonna know where it needs to go until you start playing. So I like to just, once I get it kind of close, for me it's too far to the right now. That's pretty close. Probably gonna have to tweak some angles, but pretty close. So I'm just gonna play a little bit. And it's real close, but I'm gonna have to tweak as I go. Okay, so now we got the floor tom. Hardware for this, just these rods. Goes in. These have these stops on here so it doesn't sink over time. So I already kind of know as far as how deep it needs to be. It's already kind of preset. But again, it's the same exact concept. Get it close, play a little bit, move it, play a little bit. Keep doing that till you love it, then tweak. Sticks are in bad shape. It's actually really close, almost perfect. Probably good for now. Okay, now here's where you get really finicky, because muscle memory is gonna take over when you're playing the drums if you've been playing for a while. Set your cymbals up where you can reach them comfortably without smacking your hands on other things. And when I say comfortable, I mean you literally should be able to play with your eyes closed and know exactly where everything's at. And I don't just mean hitting the cymbal, I mean the bell, the rim, if you want to crash it or ride it. We have a couple different kinds of stands here. We have a couple cymbals. I'm gonna lay out the cymbals that we do have, which will give me a better idea of what stands to use and where to place things. So I'm gonna start off with this ride. It's a 20-inch Zildjian K crash ride, and I'm going to place it, when it's all said and done, it'll be right about here, high enough so I can crash it, low enough so I can ride it. And so I'm gonna need a boom stand because I'm gonna have to fly it out over the bass drum. Quick tip for budget purposes. These are PDP, which is a subsidiary brand of DW. I've compared these not only online but in person to DW, and DW is superior, there's no doubt. These are like a third of the price. And these are still really good stands. They're double braced. They've got the boom that slides down into the stand itself, so you can make it into a straight stand or you can make it into a boom stand very easily. It's just a good product. If you're looking to cut some costs on a drum set, that's where I would start. A little bit cheaper hardware, still good hardware, a little bit more budget friendly. Now for worship music, I like my cymbals to be more or less flat. I don't like them kind of angled towards me because I'm crashing on my rides a lot. I'm crashing on my crashes a lot. So I'd like to be able to hit the edge of the cymbal and crash it very easily. If I was playing jazz or something with a more mellow, maybe indie, that style of music, I'm gonna angle them more towards me because I'll be riding a lot more. But that's more the preference of the user and the style of music you're playing. So again, just like everything we've done up to this point, we've set it kind of where I think it should be, and now we're going to play a little bit. I can tell you off the gate, it's a little low and it's a little close to me, so I can't reach out and crash it like I want to, and I would probably hit my floor tom a bunch. My knuckles would hit it as I'm following through in a crash. I'm gonna have to move it, but nevertheless, I'm gonna give it a try. as I suspected, needs to come up and out just a touch. That feels very comfortable, so I'm gonna leave that where it's at. The next most important cymbal for me is gonna be my main crash cymbal, which actually in worship I kind of switch it up. I put my primary crash on the right side. That's just a personal preference, and I put my faster, lighter cymbal on this side. So I'm gonna do the faster, lighter one first. It's gonna go right here. This is a great example of what not to do. I forgot to order, or I forgot the correct amount of stands I would need. So I'm using an old, very junky stand. It's single braced, it's very wobbly. It's a little off balance too. Like if I hit this the wrong way, the whole thing might go. This hardware up here is already bent. The chrome is peeling off of it. Just not good. But for the moment, it's all I have until I get another order in with Sweetwater. So I'm gonna take my faster crash, which is a Zildjian K Dark Crash 17-inch. Pretty light, pretty fast, not overly brilliant. It's a good fit for worship. And again, we're gonna get it roughly where I think it needs to go. And this stand is such a piece of junk, this might not even work. Can confirm this will not work. Okay, so I have my other PDP stand here. This is what I'm gonna actually use for this, even though I was kind of hoping to save it for a different application. But you gotta do what you can with what you have. So this stand will work a lot better, especially that's part of the reason I like to set up the tom first, get all the shells set up, because this has already established its footprint. So now I have to figure out how to work around that. I know I've said it many times, but our concern is ergonomics, not looks. Personally, I think all straight stands look way better. My camera shut off after I maybe midway through setting up this crash, and that's okay. I'm gonna talk you through the rest of this with the camera in my hand. That way I can actually show you around the kit a little bit. So this cymbal I set up based on the footprint of this stand. That's why I set up the tom first and all the shells first, because that footprint kind of dictates where that footprint goes. And so I have to use a boom. As much as I would like to use all straight stands because they just look way cooler, I can't do it. So that I got placed, play a little bit, see where it's at. For me, it was way too close to me, so I had to move it back a little bit. Then I came over and placed the ride cymbal. So maybe you can tell, maybe you can't. Basically, it's in the hole right between the toms. Yeah, right over the bass drum. And then my last thing is this, my Zildjian K Dark Crash 19-inch. These are all thin cymbals. They're all very full, but they wash very quickly, and that just works for worship. For this one, I just place it kind of off to my right, about as far as I'll place any cymbal. Normally, I would just keep moving if I had effect cymbals and place something right here above the floor tom, but for worship, this is as far as I'm gonna go. And then from the back side, here's kind of what it looks like. So I don't have the right lens, so I'm not gonna get too close, but this is what it looks like to me. So snare drum is very flat. The angle is right, so I can play rim shots, but I can also play gently drum rolls and little shuffles. Tom is angled towards me a little bit, so I'm not wasting a bunch of energy trying to reach and play it flat or play it at too much of an angle. It's just about right. Floor tom is also very flat, slightly lower. That's just how I always play it. That's why I do it that way. And then my cymbals are all within reach. Now, one thing I do like to do, and this is more for our sound guy, is I will keep my top row of cymbals. You can probably tell they're about even with each other, and that's because up here he's gonna be putting a couple microphones, and it's just easier for him to EQ when there's a closer distance between the mic and the cymbals. So that's not as much for me as it is for him. I do play this one a little higher sometimes, but I like to work with him, keep him happy. So, and then of course the hi-hats, which we placed earlier. And then down here we have the placement of the pedals. So anyway, that's it. Thanks so much for watching. You guys have questions about head selection or why we use the cymbals we do, and honestly that'll probably change. I'm probably gonna go to even bigger cymbals soon. This is just what I have at the moment. I'm starting to get sweaty, so I had to take my hat off. Holy moly. So, took me, even with explaining that to you guys, it only took me like 15 to 20 minutes to set that up. Not too bad, if you know what you're doing. So fuzzy, get out of here. As far as preferences on sticks, heads, cymbals, tom sizes. If you guys want me to go into specifics, let me know. I'm not gonna do it today just because this video would go on forever. We do have kind of specific selections based on what I like to play and what our sound engineer needs for the room. So if you guys are interested in those things, let me know in the comments and we'll try to cover those topics. Otherwise, thanks for watching. Go buy a drum set, learn to play.